Greg, you have
Right.
vinyl behind you,
I do.
sorted alphabetically,
I do.
which
Not by my
inspired,
choice. But go ahead.
not your choice.
Well,
Okay.
I wouldn't care, but my wife's a librarian, so
Oh, well, you inspired me
there
to,
has to be some order.
yes. Um, you inspired me, or Kel inspired me to arrange my vinyl alphabetically as well, not including the Neil Young vinyl, which is all on its own. Um, so why don't we do this? I'm going to pick a letter. You're going to go behind you,
Yeah.
pick out an album based on that letter, and you're going to talk about it. And if there's enough time, you can do the same with me.
All right.
How does that sound?
Sure.
All right, so let's go. Let's go with G.
G. G
G.
for
G for gorgeous Greg. Oh, there's also G. Well, let's see. Let's see what Greg pulls out. For those of you listening and not watching this on YouTube, Greg is wearing a Big Sugar T-shirt, and on the back there is a Canadian flag. It might be in gold, and he's going through his vinyl,
there is actually
and doesn't seem to be any G. Oh,
I've got yes, there is G.
G. Can I
Now you
guess
do
what
it.
it is?
Okay, go ahead.
I haven't seen the vinyl, but just based on what you like, what you've liked in your age, I'm going to guess Genesis.
You know how close you are?
Oh, damn it. All right, tell me what you got. Ah, Peter Gabriel.
It is the
Sledgehammer.
extended dance remix
Okay.
of Sledgehammer.
All right. So tell me, why do you have that?
Well,
And do you have so?
I don't have so here. Most of my vinyl
Yeah.
is all extended like 12 inches because I used to DJ. So rather than have necessarily the album,
Yeah.
I would buy the dance remixes. So that Peter Gabriel Sledgehammer is the 12-inch remix. I think there's how many versions on this? There are two different versions plus Don't Break the Rhythm and I Have the Touch. So um Peter Gabriel, unfortunately, is somebody that I did not get to see live. I have not seen live.
Ah.
But yeah, I mean that album "So" was a transformational album, in my opinion. The production was
Yes.
unbelievable. The songwriting was unbelievable. The musicianship was unbelievable.
Oh, just great music. Great album. Front to
Absolutely,
back.
absolutely.
All right.
Okay, you. Let's go. See, I could go K because that would keep in theme, but I'm gonna go F.
F. Hold on a second. Here we go. F.
I should have gone S because I started off with "You Suck," but
I
that's
thought you were
fine.
gonna do
F.
U. All right. There's a bunch of F's here. That's an F. That's a G. Okay.
This reminds me of who was a guest on the podcast, Julian Taylor. When
Julian Taylor. He went
you
through
guys
his
geeked
vinyl.
out over album or over vinyl.
So Fleetwood
Fleetwood
Mac,
Mac.
Tango in the Night.
Yes.
Now, now, there's a story behind this particular album.
Okay.
So, Minaz was getting frustrated with me taking her to rock concerts. And she says, that's it. You have to buy a ticket that I want to go to. And for me, like when I would listen to Q107 back in the day, um, I wouldn't necessarily know the song. I wouldn't necessarily know. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I was on mute. Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry. I made fun
Um,
of you saying back in the day, but I was on mute at the time. So Anyway,
And I wouldn't necessarily know the artist, but I would know I would know the song. And so one day she says to me, I want to go see Fleetwood Mac. And at the time, I'm thinking in my head, Fleetwood Mac, I didn't compute that. It didn't, there's no songs that came into my head, no album, nothing. Just a blank Fleetwood Mac. I didn't even go online to check. And this is not so long ago that I couldn't go online and check. Mm-hmm. But I said, fine, I'll get Fleetwood Mac. We go and we see this lineup, by the way. We see the iconic lineup. Unfortunately, Christine McVie has passed. But we went to see this lineup, which I think is, when people think of Fleetwood Mac, they don't think of Peter Green, God rest his soul, but they think of this lineup. And they played this album. They played all the hits. And I'm dancing and I'm watching Lindsey Buckingham play the guitar like I've never seen anybody play the guitar. I'm like, what the heck is going on? I'm looking at Minaj and she's sitting down. I go, what are you doing? You wanted to come to this concert. She goes, I don't know any of these songs. I'm like, what?
What?
She was thinking of this album, Tango in the Night. And if you listen to both of these albums, this is a quintessential classic rock album, Rumors, by the way. Mm-hmm. Tango in the Night has like a dance beat. You probably played, or you could have played as a DJ, some songs, dance versions of Tango in the Night.
Probably didn't, but go ahead.
They may have played one song.
100% sure I didn't, but go ahead.
May have played one song. And so anyways, I found it quite amusing that Minaj went to a concert that she chose and didn't enjoy it because they decided not to play this album. And do you know why they decided not to play Tango in the Night? They didn't say it, but Tango in the Night was supposed to be a solo album by Lindsey Buckingham.
Huh.
And it ended up being a Fleetwood Mac album. So I don't know whether Fleetwood Mac necessarily, the powers that be at Fleetwood Mac necessarily want to give props to Tango in the Night. So that's my Fleetwood Mac Tango in the Night story.
I have a story that sort of dovetails off that my wife is going to hate me for telling. Although I think I've told you it before. And it was... I think
you've told it on this show.
Have I told on this show?
I think so, but go ahead. Huh. Yeah.
And so she was so excited to buy tickets for a huge band.
Massive
band playing at the Danforth Music Hall. And she was so excited, and she thought she was seeing Arcade Fire at the Danforth Music Hall. And this is no disrespect to Broken Social Scene, but she bought tickets to Broken Social Scene. She thought she was seeing Arcade Fire. It was still an amazing show, as obviously phenomenal show. But yeah, she was similar. I recognize your wife. Your wife actually knew that she was seeing the band she was going to see, just not the album. My wife thought she was going to see a completely different band.
All right.
At the Danforth Music Hall.
And that's the pre-show.
And that is the pre-show.
Let's chat with Sean Kelly.
Hi, the following podcast is brought to you by Radical Road Brewery, the best craft beer in the heart of Leslieville. Find them at 1177 Queen Street East. That's Radical Road Brewery.
Hi there, my name's Sean Kelly. I'm the author of the new book, Don't Call It Hair Metal, Art in the Excess of 80s Rock. I'm a guitar player. I'm a teacher. But most of all, I'm a music fan. So welcome to the music.
welcome, 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 Sean. It's honestly, it's a pleasure having you here. I have a ton of notes. I don't even know if we're going to get through everything within an hour. And at the risk of sounding like I creeped you on socials, we have a whole bunch of mutual friends that that will probably come up in conversation.
Wonderful.
But about the book, don't call it hair metal. So at the beginning, you talk about sort of the quintessential bands, or the really like the big bands and the important albums that were part of it. And I was, I guess, part of the beginning, but I kept thinking of one album, and I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And chapter 5 started off with Hot Young, Running Free, a little bit better than it used to be. And I'm like, okay, there's the album. There's the album. So I just, to me, this album is, and I've not argued this before, but I've mentioned this before, arguably one of the best punk albums ever written, ever recorded. Too Fast for Love. Can I start by asking you your view and your thoughts on Too Fast for Love, which is one of my favorite albums of all time?
Yeah, it's also one of my favorite albums of all time. And it wasn't the first, even though it was Motley Crue's first album, it wasn't the first one I came to. I discovered Motley Crue through Shout at the Devil, like so many people my age. But it was, after kind of devouring Shout at the Devil and every piece of reading material I could get about that record, I discovered that they had indeed made a previous album, and somebody at my school had a copy of the cassette. And I remember throwing it on, and I actually almost felt sick the first time I heard it, because it was not the polished album I had heard previously. It was out of tune. It was scary. It sounded like disco. It sounded old and weird and violent. And the guitar tones were very in your face. And I just didn't know what I was listening to. And then I kept going back to it, because it was like looking at something that horrifies you, but you keep going back and looking at it. It's like almost like, going back to smell the sour milk over and over again. And eventually you kind of dig it. And I've grown to love that record and realize it's very, very important. And actually how it ties in to 70s glam power pop, like bands like the Raspberries and Sweet and Cheap Trick, and all these bands I would discover later on that would become very important to me. But at the time, and like you said, it also is an amalgam of punk music. It's got new wave in it. It has all these very Los Angeles sensibilities. It's actually incredibly sophisticated on one hand, and then it's also very raw. And to go back and later on, I actually just found a copy of the Leather Records version, the actual independent pressing on vinyl, and to go back and listen to the original intended mix, which is far better than the mix that came out on the major label version, and hear what it was supposed to be. I think it's a near perfect rock and roll record.
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, I love it.
Do you remember how old you were when you heard that album, and how did it influence you?
Yeah, well, I would have been in grade 6 when I heard it, because that's when I came to Shout at the Devil. And well, it kind of gave me an idea of how bands develop, which I guess in a sense helped me write this book, 40 years after the fact, because I realized there had been some massive change in these human beings between Shout at the Devil and that first record. And then I kind of, part of me thought, I guess just every record just keeps getting better. That was my first thought. Okay, I really like this, but this is it. A band has a lineage. A band has a trajectory. A band has a history. Okay, I'll like the next one better and better. And I really convinced myself of that. I remember getting Theater Pain, which is, in retrospect, an inferior record to both of those previous records. But at the time, I just said, it's the new one. It's better. I've invested in this. I had to actually split the cost with my friend Sean Walsh. We each had $5. We pooled our money, got the record. We'd ride it back and forth to each other's houses on our bikes. I have the record now. Sean Walsh does not have the record. I'm sorry, Sean. I kept it. But yeah, that was what I remember about that, was that things change, bands change, and I guess you just got to keep getting better. Of course, I go back and I look at the historical importance of Too Fast for Love and what I've come to value in rock music, and I realize that's my favorite record. All the elements that make that record what it is. So yeah, it was a big record for me.
That's amazing. I have to ask you this.
Yeah.
The title of your book.
Yeah.
Why can't we call it hair metal?
Well, you can call it whatever the hell you want, really, at the end of the day. But
why don't you want to call it hair metal?
Well, because to me, it's a pejorative term that was applied to, in a blanket way, to a bunch of hard rock music of the 80s after the fact. You know what I mean? It was a marketing ploy. I think the first time I saw it, I was working at Tower Records in the 90s, and it was like a compilation, hair metal. You know, I was like, what the hell is that? But, you know, it was a facile way to lump it all together, right?
Yeah.
Yes, people had big hair, all these bands. And to be fair, near the end of the 80s into the early 90s, as record companies became more corporate, and you had these conglomerates coming in, and it became more about bean counting rather than developing unique individual artistic talent. You could make a case that, yes, things got refined to the point where every label had to have a W band, a White Lion, a Warrant, a Winger, you know? You know, like it got to the point where it was really so formulaic. Everything did start to sound the same. You had the same producers making the same record with the same session players, with the same art director, the same clothing director, designer. So, I mean, you could make an argument that things got so refined that it was easy. It was an easy target, right? You could just lump it in. Big hair. Okay, hair metal. But we don't call 50s music pompadour rock, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't call new wave asymmetrical haircut rock. So I thought it was unfair to label it that. But at the end of the day, I mean, I kind of ditched that premise early on, where I was going to prove how wrong you were if you don't like this and how right I am. Because really, it's just about showing. I just really wanted to show the artistic intention of some of these people, the sonic evolution of the music, and how much it meant to me and why it meant something.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. It's funny when you talk about, even when you're mentioning new wave. I love the hair metal SWOT analysis. You know, talking about threat and parental disapproval. And for me, you know, I was a big fan of metal, you know, Iron Maiden, and that sort of time, not early 80s AC/DC, but sort of the late 70s, early 80s AC/DC. And I remember, I don't know how old I was, 15 or whatever. And my bud's brother came back from, I think he went to Guelph University, and he came back with all these albums. So we're listening to like early Duran Duran, early Temple Tudor, early Haircut 100. And you know, we started with the big hair, and again, sort of the new wave big hair, not necessarily the metal big hair, but I mean, we were all teasing our hair with final net and crimping irons and everything else, right? But it's funny because my parents who were both teachers told me I was not allowed to leave the house with big hair. So I would literally leave the house and go up to my friend Paula's house, and she would crimp and tease my hair, and off to school I went. So I think it's funny because it's like cross genres. We were all sort of the big hair rebelling, like just that excess, if you will. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny. I remember I had a Motley Crue shirt I hid in the backyard that I would put on because I was just not allowed to have that. You know, I remember tricking my brother-in-law into getting me a Twisted Sister iron-on shirt in the mall. You know, you could go to the mall, there'd be like a kiosk in the middle, and him not knowing how averse my mother was to this, and him getting in trouble and, you know, feeling betrayed by his young brother-in-law, soon-to-be brother-in-law. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can relate, Craig.
So it's funny because I do want to explore that with you because, you know, I know you're a Catholic school teacher. In fact, you teach right down the road from us. We're at sort of the Donlands and O'Connor area, which is where I live. But can you talk about that sort of, you know, the Catholic upbringing versus some of the darker, more, and I know you touched it in the book, but sort of the darker satanic, you know, themes that come across in metal versus, you know, your upbringing?
Well, I mean, let's face it. I mean, I'm well versed in the devil already. I mean, I'm already an expert on, you know, what I've got to do to avoid it. To me, it was just you were just flipping the script. It's like, well, hey, check this out. Maybe it's not so bad. Hell ain't a bad place to be, as AC/DC would say. I don't know, but it's like anything, right? It's taboo. It's fascinating. It's all I knew. See, I never actually related that much on a lyrical level. It was always how the music made me feel and how the visuals impacted me. So the lyrics, I would sometimes wish they weren't as scary as they were. I wish they weren't as overtly sexual or had the drug references, because I still wanted to adhere to, my Catholic upbringing as a kid. I grew up in a happy Catholic home. Like, I mean, I didn't want to. My parents were wonderful to me. I had wonderful experiences in that system. So I wasn't like I was trying to kick against it, but it was alluring. And then I have to admit later on, it's like, well, why can't I listen to that? Well, maybe I should play that Shout at the Devil cassette backward. It says that it may contain backward messages. What are they trying to tell me? I think he said Satan. I don't know. Let's rewind it again. Like going over with my buddy's 4-track, recorder and flipping the tape and playing it backwards. And we would sit there and try and write the lyrics down, it was fun to do that. It felt like almost like the feeling you get when you watch a horror movie. So reconciling it, at times it was actually a challenge for me. I remember my mom was a tried and true record smasher. She smashed record, like records were broken in front of me.
Wow.
And sometimes I could see why, that whole satanic panic thing that was happening. Take it from their perspective. Our parents are getting information from media sources, and it's saying your kids are being possessed by the devil. This is a negative influence. Remember, this is a PMRC. This is Tipper Gore. This is like, these are mainstream Democrats coming at you, telling you it's bad news, right? So, I can understand. And to be fair, I was challenged. I remember I bought a Shout at the Devil guitar songbook. It had the guitar chords and the piano music, right? And you'd have the lyrics. And I remember making the argument, but the music's not bad. You just hate the lyrics. You don't hate the music. So our compromise was to go through together and black out any lyrics that didn't sit with our family values.
Wow.
So it was a bit of a drag, I won't lie, for me to get it. But I kept the book. So I had this great support for my musical endeavors, but I think I was just, under the watchful eye of cautious parents who, in hindsight, probably were onto something here. Maybe this wasn't the best stuff to be exposed to when you're young, especially some of the sexist stuff.
Well,
it's fun. Sorry, if I could dovetail off that, because it's funny that you say that, because my kids are in their late 20s now. And so they grew up in our house listening to bands like the Salads. And the Salads, right? The Salads have some of their fun pop ska stuff, right? But if you listen to some of the early stuff like Triple X and some of the other songs, very sexual, very, and so what and not just the Salads, a lot of that sort of 90s, music. What the rule was in our house was you weren't allowed to say the words, right? We would let you listen to them, and again, I'm talking, my kids are like, however tall or however young, right? But you can listen to the music, but as soon as you say the words, then you're not listening to this anymore. And it was hilarious because we'd be driving to Florida, the kids would have the Salads and be like, blah, 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 blah. It was our way of, when you talk about your parents censoring, it was our way of it censoring our kids in a way. Sorry.
Well, no problem. And the flip side is you also start to realize that a lot of this music, like someone like Nikki Sixx, he's writing these lyrics as a reaction against the negative side of organized religion. When you start hearing about all these atrocities that the Catholic Church is responsible for, all of a sudden that gives you perspective. It's like, oh yeah, not everybody had the experience I had.
Yeah,
there are horrible things that happen. So it just gives you a broader worldview. And it's funny, I just saw something. It was King Diamond and Michael Sweet from Stryper. They had just played together at a festival. And you see the two of them hanging out and getting along, but they're getting criticized by both of their fan bases. You're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite. And they're going, a hypocrite? We're musicians. We're just two guys who we like each other's music. We look at the world differently, but we're both decent people. Yeah. And at the end of the day, as an adult, hopefully you come to that realization. You can have disagreements or different philosophies and still get along, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a full circle moment, Sean, when your parents meet Dee Snider.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us that story?
Sure. Well, I was lucky enough to be part of a musical called Dee Snider's Rock and Roll Christmas Tale. A musical in which I thought I was just going to be playing guitar, but I ended up having to learn how to act, dance, and sing in this thing. And it was the greatest challenge of my life, but the most rewarding professional thing I ever did. I absolutely adored it. And, Dee Snider is the reason I'm a musician, full stop. Absolutely the reason I play guitar is because of We're Not Going to Take It. And also, so this was a big point of consternation for my parents because, you got these guys in full makeup looking like linebackers from hell, who are, telling you not to take it, not to, anti-authoritarian kind of vibes, right? Which, when you look back now, was all pretty playful, cartoonish, very Looney Tunes, right? Which is where they were coming from, right? Very 50s rock and roll. But anyway, I'd done this play, and I'll never forget because that night Nelly Furtado came to the show too. I was playing with Nelly, and she came to the show and Dee Snider. So it was a really nice moment. Like everyone was kind of hanging out. But the moment where it was funny because what Dee really wanted it, I told Dee my parents were coming, and we had talks about legitimacy and feeling legitimate in your parents' eyes for what you do. And he felt that being in theater gave him real legitimacy as an artist, I think. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he can find him saying that. And we talked about this. Like he'd say, hey man, like I know you can play guitar, but now you're delivering lines. It's cool, right? And I'm going, yeah, it is cool. But I remember him going to my mom and saying, aren't you proud? He's in the theater,
Wow.
And I'm going, this is amazing. And then I'm remembering, but mom, you wouldn't let me even have this guy's t-shirt. So I was having this weird conflict where it's like, wait a second. But no, it was absolutely beautiful because as much as I talk about, my parents, doing things like taking t-shirts, whatever, my mom was so supportive and is so supportive, my biggest fan to this day, So it was absolutely wonderful. And I'm glad I think me being a musician was a massive learning curve for my parents too, right? Dropping me off at bars when I'm underage to go play gigs and picking me up and seeing the people I was hanging out with at the time, quite young, because I'm playing with older people. And, some of the bars, I don't know, there were two types of entertainment usually. You'd do a set and then there was another type of entertainment that would come on after you, right? So, I mean, these are all things I'm exposed to while I'm still going to Catholic high school, the next day. So dichotomous lifestyle choices, right? But yeah, it was really an amazing moment. And I dedicate the book to Dee and my parents because, really the two biggest influences over the course of my life in a lot of ways.
That is crazy. And I mean, there's another full circle moment. Like you're at the board now. You're with the Catholic School Board.
Yes.
So you start off with your parents. You guys are, I don't know whether discussing, but you're sort of coming to an agreement on what you can and cannot do around music. And play the music. You can't read the words, or they don't want you to listen to the words. You then you've got this moment where the same band that your mom wouldn't let you watch or would smash the record or not let you wear the t-shirt, you introduce them to the lead singer. And now you are at a school. And what I want to ask you, Sean, is how do you now, with the same eyes where you weren't rebelling necessarily, but you were attracted to to rock music, to heavy metal. And now kids are listening to different types of music. I'm curious how you sort of navigate those waters when now, kids are wearing other types of t-shirts. Kids are listening to different types of music. How do you as a musician, as someone that sort of went through, what you should and should not listen to, how do you navigate the waters these days?
Well, what I try to convey to kids, you have to be careful. You have a responsibility to parents. You have to respect parents' wishes. You have to respect your school board's rules, and you have to respect, the role you play in influencing the kids that you teach, right? So all those things come into play. But what I try to convey is it's important to be judicious when you're listening and to understand what art is, and that art the expression of art can challenge you. It can challenge things that you believe to be true. It's the beauty of art. It lets you look at the world through a different perspective, but it doesn't mean you have to adhere to everything that you're listening to. You can experience someone's thrills, someone's pain, someone's joys through their music, but it doesn't mean that you have to be an active participant in the lifestyle choices, right? So I think as a teacher, I do have a responsibility to promote, the health and well-being of my students and to watch out over them for sure. But I have no problem if a kid wants to play me something that might color outside the line so that we can have the discussion about it.
Yeah.
And in terms of genres of music, the kids are always right. The kids are always right. So me telling them it doesn't wash with me when people say, oh, no, this new music's a bunch of crap. It's just a bunch of computer. The kids are always right because kids will find the thing that connects them to other kids. And really, what Rick Gilmore, rock and roll lives and breathes in the hearts of the young, right? Triumph. I mean, that's what it is. So, and the beauty of it is today, kids have the world's music at their fingertips. So they're listening to everything. I mean, they might come in with an AC/DC song. They might come in with a Lady Gaga song one day, Taylor Swift, Doja Cat, whatever. They're listening to so much, and music is always in their periphery. It's not necessarily weighted with the same value that we listen to music because they have so many more forms of entertainment and so many more things. So much more information is coming at them. I had a simple life. I could get Theater of Pain and I'd spent my money. I had no more access to anything. I just have to play that record and read about who did their hair and know everything about that band. So that was our biggest form of social communion, music. I try to tell people, this used to be a thing we do. I would bring a record to my friend's place and we'd sit down and we would listen to the record. That was the activity. Well, what were you doing? Playing video games? No. We were listening to the record and not talking and just nodding.
Yeah.
And that blows people's minds, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. I was going to go somewhere else, but I was thinking about, was it Billy Rowe from Buck Cherry's comment about, listening to bands like Lords of the New Church in Japan, right? Which was the stuff I was into then. And I think about when I was playing again, Durham, and this is where I think we have a number of mutual friends, playing with Mike Turner and others, sort of the new wave, sort of, heading into the power station kind of thing. But yet we go during our, we go to the sound check for Maelstrom or Harem Scarum and or Durango 94. Well, I guess Purple Toads at that point. But it's like, there was this whole community of musicians and we all hung out and listened to each other. But our fans, not fans, but the people that came to our shows weren't necessarily listening to Maelstrom and weren't listening to the Purple Toads, yet we were all part of a community of musicians. And so to your point, today the kids, like I love the fact that there's that mash of all different genres that kids are listening to. I look at my kids and then my nieces and nephews that are younger, and like there's no divisive line like there was back then.
No, it's funny. I have a little rock band at one of the schools I teach at. We have an extracurricular that's a band you can join, right? The rock band. And it's amazing to me how little influence I've had. Like, I mean, they come to me with, it might be, hey, I found this song. It's by a Russian alternative band. They're all instrumental. They do surf punk. Where'd you find it? I don't know. It was recommended on some app. And I go, great. That's amazing. But they might come in, they want to play Crazy Train, So they're finding it and they're doing it. And I'm realizing the one thing that's constant, and this is the beauty of the guitar, that it's still an inviting beast to try and conquer. And there's something about the tangible thing of, I'm responsible, even more so than a synthesizer. And I love all those tools. I love all digital tools. I love all tools for making music. But the thing where it's like, oh, wow, I put pressure on, I push the string up. It makes this thing, it makes me feel a certain way. I still see that as being vibrant. I see that in my concert band, no matter what instrument they're playing, where it's like, oh, wow, I'm generating this. There's something I'm doing physically. I have more ownership over making the sound. That's still appealing, right? And still connects them. So I don't think those things are ever going away, you know, and I just think that it's now they have access to technology, which helps them learn more, helps them get sounds I wish I had. Like, I mean, we've got these little amps that have every effect known to man. I mean, I remember one kid, Brock Farquhar, had an MXR distortion pedal, and I thought I found God. I was like, that's the sound. I hit this. He gave me the 2 chords, my little pawn shop guitar, my little practice amp, and it sounds like, you know, Quiet Riot. I'm going, oh my God, like this is incredible. Yeah. I mean, I think it's like, you know, yeah, there's benefits to the old school ways. Yeah, I think there was benefits to dropping a needle and trying to learn a Max Webster solo. I think, you know, the struggle that was inherent in that made a certain type of player. But I don't know. I go on Instagram and I watch 6-year-old kids played circles around me. I'll never be able to touch them.
Oh yeah,
that's pretty cool too. If you would have given me that chance back then, I would have taken it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Who gets a bigger kick during parent teacher night? The kids or the parents? Like chatting with, like, do the parents go, oh my God, you played with so and so, you played with, or do the kids go, oh my goodness, you've played with all of these superstars? Who gets a bigger kick?
To be honest, it's not like it doesn't come up very often. It's certainly nothing I'm going to put out in the class. Like, I mean, I don't want to labor them with my boring old road stories. That's what my own family's for. But I once in a while I'll have a parent come up. Like, one parent had seen me play at a German heavy metal festival, and I remember I was in front of my principal, who had no idea what I was at a new school. I just returned to teaching, and I was there. Family, I saw you at Dokken, man, with Lear, and I saw you. And I was like, oh yeah, oh good. I'm glad you enjoyed it, sir. And don't worry, you know, Kirsten's doing very well, and you know, trying to, you know. But it kind of, once in a while the things come up, right? Or they've seen me, or they know an artist I play with once in a blue moon, and it's been great, you know, like, especially with the Rock of Ages thing. I've had a few parents who brought their kids to the show, and you know, there's been, like, some of the show is a little adult thematically, right? So I kind of say, hey, you're gonna have to scrub your brain after watching this. We won't talk about this when we're in music theory class, but you know, it's really nice. It's nice when we can make that connection, and they can see that there's opportunities that arise from playing music and following, and you know, I certainly don't shy away from telling them I've been very fortunate if they ask, like, with the opportunities I've been gifted with, you know, because music's given me the chance to see the world, and I'm very grateful for that.
Absolutely. You know, earlier you talked about was it 6 nights a week? You're doing Rock of Ages right now.
Yeah, six shows a week. Yeah,
six shows a week. And I want to say thank you for spending this evening with us.
Oh, my pleasure. It's last week of the show. It's our last week. I'm going to miss it very much.
So I wanted to ask you, like, was there ever a point? I mean, it hasn't been so long. I think February is when you guys started.
Yeah, February 23rd. Yeah.
You know, compared to, like, what is it, Phantom of the Opera in Broadway, which is finally coming to their last shows.
Yeah.
And they've been playing for I don't know how many years. But how was there ever a time 6 shows a week where you go, enough of this already?
No.
Not at all.
No.
Okay.
No. I love every minute of it. I love it. I still love those songs. I still get excited. Here I Go Again's coming up. I get to play Here I Go. I get to be John Sykes for 2 seconds, you know? I get to be Carlos Cavazo. I get to be, you know, CC DeVille, whoever it is. Like, I get those moments. I am grateful for it. I love it. I love how it makes people feel. And that's the thing. Another reason why I wrote this book is this music stayed with me. It didn't leave me. Some people visited it and they moved on to other things, and they look back and go, oh, that's the stuff I was doing. That's good. It's still it always stayed with me. So I never got tired of it. And I'll be driving to the theater, and if I have a Night Ranger album, I'll leave Sister Christian on, even though I'm going to be playing the thing for the 6th time that week in the show.
Yeah.
Because I love it.
That's amazing.
I love it.
That's so refreshing.
And it has opened the door. I love all music. I studied classical guitar. I've played on country records. I've played jazz. I've had the opportunity to play so many different styles of music and all of that. But all of it stems from rock music. Everything I do, I look through a hard rock prism.
Yeah. What's your favorite song to play in Rock of Ages? Do you have a favorite one?
You know which one it is? It's actually, we were just talking about it. The drummer in Rock of Ages is Sean Kilbride from the band Haywire. Amazing drummer and great players. Mark Camilleri, music director, Mike Peller, and the bass player, Gino Del Sole on guitar one, like incredible players. But Sean and I were saying the one we're really loving playing is it's a medley of Shadows of the Night by Pat Benatar and hold on a second. No, I guess it is this shot. Oh, and sorry. Oh, it's escaping me now. It's my favorite one to play. I love it so much I can't remember. Oh, Harden My Heart by Quarter Flash and Shadows of the Night. Those two together. And it's just the way it grooves. There's just something about when we lock in. I think we're the best band in the world when we play it. That sounds really cocky, right? But I'm telling you, I don't think there's any mother that can touch us when we are clicking on that group. And it's that just we lock into that, we feel those rhythms together, and it's mad. And with that incredible cast and the vocals and the dancing and the production elements, I can't say enough about what More Entertainment did with that Rock of Ages production. I'm so proud to be a part of it and honored.
Yeah. Do you get to make any of those songs like yours in terms of, you know, do you maybe hang on a note or do something different than the original?
Yeah, like we there are opportunities, especially in underscore moments where there's dialogue, where these things have morphed, right? Where there's freedom inherent in it. Sometimes you gotta play the ink, you play it like it's written.
Yeah.
But the music director, Mark, he understands what this music's about and that there are moments like that, and those things do grow. So yeah, sometimes I'd say there's a fair amount of freedom. And, you know, there's a part at the top of the show where I got to write my whole little two-hand tapping, you know.
Oh, nice.
I'm living the full 80s arena rock dream. I'm walking out center stage under lasers, two-hand tapping on a guitar with a big snake on it. Like, my life is complete. And I'm in a leather jacket with studs. And I got leather pants and big boots, and my hair's piled up to the sky, and I'm wearing makeup. Like, and I'm 50. I'm a 50-year-old man. I get to do that. But come on. It's all working out. It's all coming up Millhouse, you know?
And then you go to school. You forget to bring the hair down?
I usually leave the nail polish on. I told everybody, the kids, you know, oh, you have a concert? Yeah, I had a concert. Sometimes the makeup's on, too, if I didn't get to the coffee maker in time that morning.
That is awesome. I want to know, how did you get into teaching? Like, how was that a thing for you?
Well, I had studied classical guitar at U of T and UBC, and I got a degree in that. And then I, you know, kind of tried my hand, went on the road, played in a band that got a record deal, you know, did some touring. But, you know, like, I saw that I was, you know, working hard to keep things going. I was able to pay the bills, but, you know, I was working in a record store. I'm picking up as many gigs as I can. I said, you know, maybe I should think about something else just to have as a, you know, I was raised practically, right? Yeah. What would be something I could do to make a little extra money? Like, you know, I saw how fickle the record industry could be. I saw how quick things can come and go.
Yeah.
And, you know, I said, okay, well, I'm late 20s. So I said, you know, maybe I should go to teacher's college. So I ended up going to teacher's college with the goal of, hey, I'll supply teach. That would be a way, if I'm not touring, I'll do some supply work. Yeah. So I went, and I ended up my first year of teaching. I walked into this school, and I'll never forget it. This class was wild. Oh. And I mean, it was like third week of September, my first gig. I got a kid jumping on the desk. They're kicking things over. They're screaming. They're hollering. It was a nightmare. And at the end of the day, I walked out the door, and the principal goes, amazing. Can you come back? And I went, no, are you kidding me? I said, I was terrible. I had no control. He goes, no, but you stayed all day. And I went, what? He goes, yeah, you're the only one who stayed. You've got to come back. And I got cornered by these 3 women teachers, and I ended up signing a contract for a position right then and there. And I ended up teaching grade 7. And I love those kids. Like, I love them. Like, we had the best year with those kids. And that showed me the power of sticking around. And I was like, you know what? There's a value here that I didn't see before.
Yeah.
And this is like early 2000, right? You could still take a bunch of kids on the subway and go someplace. And it was still pretty. Yeah. It wasn't quite as prohibitive. Let's put it that way. So we'd go down to Much Music, and it was easier to get around those days. And man, we had lots of fun and I loved it. And then I found out, hey, you can teach music. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a thing you can do. And that was it. Once I got my first music teaching job, I was hooked. And it became a very holistic part of what I do as a musician. Like I don't separate. It's like my day job and then my night job. I'm a musician, and that's a massive part of my life that I'm very grateful.
And you make such a, I mean, music is so important for kids. Yeah. Like it just makes such a difference. And it helps them not just in confidence because they're playing music, but math and spatial reasoning. And like, it's just so important. And it kills me that we're seeing such cuts to the arts in our school system.
Yeah, we're really fortunate. I have to say the Toronto Catholic District School Board, we have a fairly robust music program and wonderful resource teachers and administrators who believe in music. We just had a couple of weeks ago our board music festival, dedicated teachers. It's wonderful. And to see those kids identifying as creators and having the music room be a place they can come to, and they walk around carrying their instruments and it means something to them. And they're out playing and they know they can come to that music room. That door is open, recess, lunch, that door is open. They can come as long as, they're there to play and work out their stuff. It's pretty amazing to me. So that's a gift for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, our kids, although we're up sort of O'Connor and Donlands now, we were down at sort of the Pape and Danforth, although we call it Riverdale Slum because we were east of Pape.
Yeah.
But our kids went to Wilkie, and it was like we as parents really pushed hard, and thankfully it's continued to this day, to the admin to say that music was something that we wanted to invest in. So, Batcha, who was the teacher there, I think she's still the teacher at Wilkinson. It was so important to the community that she continued, and we'd bring in people like Melanie Doan and to continue to support amazing. The programs, right?
Mm-hmm.
To complement the program. So
yeah, wonderful.
I must say, talking about music, we're recording this in the evening. It is 7:10 p.m. and my son is still at school because of music. He's in the orchestra. He's in the band. He's in the choir, and he's in the jazz band.
Incredible.
Mondays until 7:30 and Fridays until 5:30.
Wow.
Never in a million years I thought you're going to hang around school for that long because of music. And he goes to Agent Court Collegiate in Scarborough. And it's not a music school, but it's like almost every kid is doing something around music.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, just fantastic that there are some schools and some teachers that
and some parent groups like parent invest. Community too that
yeah, absolutely.
In that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Sean, I wanted to ask you like a bunch of stuff. But you've had the opportunity to tour all over the world. Your favorite tour?
My favorite tour?
Yeah.
You know what? I was just reminded of one. I was just on a cruise with Lee Aaron. We played the Monsters of Rock cruise.
Yeah.
Just 2 weeks ago, we sailed from Port Canaveral to Labadee, Haiti, and it was Extreme and Winger and Tesla and Queensryche and Kicks and all these amazing bands. George Lynch, Michael Schenker, all these incredible guitar players I got a chance to see that I grew up listening to. And we were playing on it and had a great time. But an old tour mate of mine was there, a guy named Spike from a band called the London Choir Boys. My first real tour with my own band, Crash Kelly, was opening up in England. We did a UK tour with the Choir Boys. And we were, the minute I saw them, we just started howling about that tour because there were just so many incredible hijinks and things we got up to. It was a true rock and roll tour, like in ways that I will not say here, but trust me, they were good. And the shows were great and the music was great. And it was also exciting to me because after years of kind of getting close, but not getting there, here was an opportunity where, we actually had a record deal with songs I'd written, songs I was singing and that were going over. And getting airplay over there, and it was a wonderful feeling. So that was a good one. I toured South America with Gilby Clarke from Guns N' Roses. That was an incredible tour. I toured with Nelly Furtado a few months earlier in South America. That was great. I mean, maybe the one that was the best though was when Crash Kelly opened for Alice Cooper in the US. That was dream come true stuff. But now I'm thinking my band with M. Griner Trapper, we opened for Def Leppard on some dates. That was incredible. They've all had their moments of magic. They've all been wonderful. I've loved every tour I've been on.
How has it been working with the board when you have to, like, I think of George from Alexis on Fire was a firefighter out in Durham, right?
Yeah.
In Oshawa. And so when he tours Australia or wherever, right, Europe or whatever, when Alexis on Fire goes out for however many shows, he has to work around that. But as a firefighter, he has that blocks of time. Whereas as a teacher, you have the block during the summer. How does it work with that?
Well, what had happened was I used to take leaves of absence. Okay. I would apply for leaves of absence, which were easier to get earlier on than they are now, to be honest. But I would do that. I actually left the board for a while because I was on tour with Nelly so much. I just kind of committed to being on the road, and so I did that. So I had to reapply, go through the interview process again. But yeah, you do that, and that's kind of the only way to do it. I mean, the thing with people say, "Oh, just take sick days." Well, I mean, you're on the internet, like, I mean, it's out there, like, so you got to be legit, right? And you know what? I've got supportive colleagues and friends, and what I try to do is make sure that I come to work, I show up, and that those kids get the concerts, they get the festivals, they get the rehearsals, they get the extracurriculars, and I try and help out. And like anything, I think when you do that and you put yourself out there, and it's such an important part of what I do. I've been very, very fortunate that I've had administrators who see that there's value that I would like to think I bring to the table as a teacher that comes from that type of work. So, it can be tough. It's tough on my family, if I'm being very honest, because I'm work a lot. I'm a workaholic. But I'm driven to do that, so yeah, balance is not easy, and I'm certainly not perfect at it.
Listen, keeping in mind, Sean, some of these tours you've been on, we've got the segment Lost Venues. So I'm curious, Sean, is there a place you've played? Maybe it's got a fond memory. Maybe there's just a story of going to hell and back. But is there a lost venue that comes to mind?
Well, there's a few that I've played along the way that are gone now, and I've enjoyed. I think about the Gasworks. When I first got to Toronto, playing the Gasworks, that was exciting. But I guess my most memorable experience from a venue that no longer exists was I was in high school, and it was in my hometown in North Bay. There was a bar called Wilder's. That was the place where the touring bands would play. And I was taking part in something called the Labatt's Blue Guitar Wars. This was something that happened late 80s or early 90s. And, you would get up and you'd play. Guitar players would sign up. It was a competition that was happening across the country. So in our little Northern Ontario thing, I was at this place. And I kind of made it to the finals of this kind of Northern Ontario thing. And my brother-in-law and my sister came to see me play in the bar. Yeah. But I'm 17, I think, or something like that. And I'm underage. And I walk off stage, and my brother-in-law, he might not like me telling this story. I hope he doesn't listen. But I walk off stage, and I start coughing. Like, and he just passes me his beer. Like here, and I take a sip of his beer, and two undercover cops come out. Let me see your ID. I don't have ID. And he goes, grab my brother-in-law and take us and bring us out put us in the back of a cop car.
Oh my goodness.
And my sister is a school teacher herself. She's going, what? Now, new to the family. Now he's got to go home and tell my record smashing mom that we are in the back of a cop car. because you know what I mean? Like, this is crazy, right? Oh my God. Like, and of course, I'm a smart ass. And he goes, yeah, we're coming here to investigate underage drinking. I go, you're coming to a bar to investigate underage drinking? We're in North Bay. Shouldn't you go out in the woods? You know, like, hello, go to the beach. And of course, get in. And we ended up, you know, having to go to court. But I'll tell you, there was a lawyer in town who phoned my mother and said, I know the cops they're jerks. I have a personal vendetta. I will take this case on free. And it turned into this gong show. Like, he just took him to task. And the judge eventually just said, what are you all doing? Don't drink beer. Don't give beer to kids. Don't waste my time. Get the hell out of here. Kick this all out. It was amazing. Like, you know. So anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Awesome.
And as my dad would have said, I already told you more than I know. I probably added that's probably like the fish that keeps getting bigger, but that's my memory.
And to say that, and to think your parents didn't say that's it for music. That's go find something else to do, become an engineer, teach math. You kept at it.
Well, I'll tell you, I haven't talked too much about my dad in this equation, but I remember playing my first professional bar gig was at a place called the Parkview Hotel, and I got stiff that night. I didn't get paid.
Oh wow!
And I went home and I told my dad, and my dad didn't say much about music, but my dad was a pro hockey player.
Yes,
played hockey, so you know, Eastern League, and played in the played with Barrie Flyers Junior A. Anyway, he goes, "Where are you playing?" Parkview. He goes, "Get in the car." And so my dad and I go down to the Parkview. My dad walks in with me. Hey, Barry. Hey, Des, how's it going? Hey, my kid played here last night. He didn't get paid. Oh, it's your kid? Here you go, kid. My dad had played hockey with the guy. I didn't know he knew anybody in the bar. My dad knew everybody in town. And he goes, get in the car. Don't tell your mom we're here. Yeah. You know, like, I was like, oh, okay. Maybe your parents know things you don't know. You know, like it was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. That's a great story. So I want to come back to the album because the book, because there's a couple of things I want to touch on. So one of the things I absolutely loved in the book that people are going to love is the glossies in the center of the book that has a bunch of posters, and like it's just phenomenal. Did you are these posters you had, or did you pull them together? Or
no, they're from private collection, right? Like, you know, that's why you're allowed to use those, right? So they're from old Kerrang magazines. My good friend and former drummer Kevin Taylor had some that we used from his private collection. So it was just, you know, memories. A lot of those though are from, I was playing with Lee Aaron in Niagara Falls, and we were playing beside an antique shop, and I found a stack of mint condition vintage Kerrang magazines. Like, it was like, and the guy said, I don't know, $2. I'm going, okay. You know, shaking as I'm trying to get the money out. But I mean, maybe they were with $2 to anybody else, but for me, it was like finding a treasure trove, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the other things you talk about in the book that I thought was funny. So I'm going to share a story of my wife. So she lived out in BC. She was babysitting. She saw this movie. And it was about this band called the Ruddles. And she went home that night and said to her parents, how could you never have introduced me to this band before? How could I be, 16 years old or however old was she was at the time, and not have known about this band, the Ruddles? And I believe in the book you share a similar story. If you don't mind just touching on that.
Yeah, well, Spinal Tap, right?
Yeah.
Like, I thought Spinal Tap was a real band. I just thought they were what they were portraying in the movie, a bunch of older guys who, I said, oh, it's kind of like weird old metal, but then I heard the song, I was like, oh, that's a weird song. But the humor of it kind of escaped me. And I remember buying, there was Ronnie James Dio did a heavy metal album for a charity called Hearing. And you know, they had Derek Smalls and and one of the other guys from Spinal Tap, and they were, you know, I said, are they real? Maybe they are real. I thought it was a joke, but maybe they're really there, Um, and it's pretty funny, like, but it's kind of a testament to how talented those guys were. Like, those songs are actually really good songs, really catchy.
Much like the Ruddles. Like, I have both albums somewhere behind me here, and I mean, like,
Yeah.
you listen to like Cheese and Onions by the Ruddles, and it's just so silly, and it's such a Beatles rip, but yet, and I know Harrison was behind with Handmade
Yeah.
Productions, the album, with the movie and the album, but it's like there are really good songs.
Yeah, it's
on both
fun,
of
right?
those albums. Yeah,
And that's what makes it work, right? It's close to the bone. It probably cut too close to the bone for a lot of the artists at the time, seeing their lifestyle being lampooned like that. But I love it. And to be honest, I still watch that movie. And I still think it's kind of cool. I kind of go, yeah, I guess I'm a joke, but that's okay. I don't mind being a joke. I still think it's cool to have and I love it when those things actually happen to you in real life. Like, something doesn't work on stage or some big arena thing and your guitar's not working. It's like Spinal Tap. It happened. You're getting the radio frequency through your amp. Like, that stuff happens, right? And you're trying to be this big, cool guy, and all of a sudden you're just like a donkey, right? But that's okay. That's part of the fun.
Yeah, no, I've told the story before, and again, normally Larry's Hideaway is not a place that our band would play, because we were really early, not early anyways, but we were like Prince New Wave kind of thing at the time. But I remember we played Larry's Hideaway, we had the silver lame suits on and the frills and everything, and I don't even know how we ended up getting the gig, but Jimmy comes running out or dancing out onto the stage, and I'm keyboardist with the drum machine, and he steps on the chord to just stops everything on the drum. Like, it's over. It's like, at that point, you're like starting again. Like, yeah, you're right. That shit happens. It does. It's what it is. Yeah.
Makes a good moments all that much better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sean, we've got the end of Rock of Ages. The book is out. We're in the last couple of months of school. What's next? What's next for Sean Kelly?
Well, it's going to be a busy summer. Playing with my next big thing is going with Coney Hatch to the Sweden Rock Festival in June with like Def Leppard, Motley Crue, Iron Maiden, Europe. It's going to be insane. And I played that festival last year with Lee Aaron. It's amazing. So looking forward to going back with the Hatchers. And then busy summer with Lee Aaron, lots and lots of festival dates. Dates keep coming in. We're promoting a new record we put out late last year called Elevate, and we're going to actually start working on a new record project, which I can't really talk about, but it's going to be fun. And we're going to keep going. And a few other projects that I'm working on. I'm going to get back to doing some more writing, and there's always things in the fire. I'm really project based these days, so I'm always thinking of something. I love the theater stuff that I've been doing, and I want to do more in that world. And I want it to all be rock based. I as long as I got a little bit of hair, I can fluff up on my head, and I can still the art.
Thank you.
No, don't worry. Don't worry. God only made so many perfect heads. You got one. You're good. You're good, buddy. You're good. But you know what?
Thank you.
All I can say is I still love doing it, and I want to keep creating this world. Yeah, I think we do create ourselves, really. I think we all have the opportunity to do that. And I'm really enjoying this phase of my life where I'm really kind of doubling down and buying in. And, I love all types of music, but I'm kind of committing to this. The next 10 years, I'm going full on hard rock and really going to honor that part of me. That's what still drives me. And it can be anything. It can be playing to 20,000 people with Coney Hatch at Sweden Rock, or it can be doing the Queen medley that we do with my concert band, at the School Board Music Festival. I don't care. I get the same rush as long as it's, based in that rock and roll music.
That's awesome. Sean, I just wanted somebody who listens to our show, also a very dear friend of mine, Lori Januska, just wanted me to say,
Lori,
she wanted to say hi. I know she said that Crash Kelly was the first band she photographed, and that I know you encouraged her to take vocal lessons where she's playing now.
Yeah.
And I think Charlotte was in your
in one of the rock camps.
One of your rock camps. So she just wanted to say hi, and I wanted to pass that along.
Thank you. Hi, Lori. Hi, Charlotte. Yeah, nice. Hi, Michael. Yeah, great.
The book.
Thank you.
is called Don't Call It Hair Metal, Art in the Excess of 80s Rock. Our guest has been Sean Kelly. He is heading off to Sweden this summer. Go catch him there. Pick up his book, published by our friends at ECW. Go get it at your favorite bookstore. Order it online if you are a fan of 80s rock, fan of rock music, fan of just
stories.
Just
but it's not just 80s. I mean, to me, it's some of the artists and musicians that you've had that have, are, I don't know if it was through interview process, but just speak to different topics. I found was just phenomenal, regardless of the genre.
Oh, right on. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, man.
Great book. Sean, thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it.